Alright, so I'm going to be talking about habituation and schizophrenia. So a few basics about habituation. Habituation is, simply put, a reduced response to repeated stimuli. So the more you are exposed to a stimulus, the less intense your response is, or the less frequent your response is, really both. Habituation is a ubiquitous thing in all living organisms. Whether you're a banana slug or a human, all organisms have this very basic and fundamental ability. So to give you an example, this is a real-life, true example of habituation that happened while I was writing my outline. Say I'm writing my outline, and there's a jackhammer going off down on the sidewalk below me. And I'm writing my outline for 5 minutes, then this jackhammer goes off. And so all of a sudden I have this orienting response towards the sound of the jackhammer. Simultaneously, my attention to my response to that jackhammer increases. And so I notice it more. And even when I'm trying to try to go back to writing my essay immediately, I'm still noticing it. I'm still having I can't. It's as if I'm not even reading the text on my screen. All I can notice is the sound of the jackhammer. But after about 30 seconds, gradually I start to habituate. My response, the attention that I'm paying to the jackhammer, slowly starts to decrease, and I can. After a while, it's like it's as if the sound isn't even happening. But say after about 10 minutes, the construction workers go on their lunch break. They go eat for about 10 minutes. There's no noise, and they come back and they start the jackhammering again. And all of a sudden, I have an increased response to the jackhammer. But this time, notably, it's not as intense as my initial exposure to the jackhammer. So after another trial of exposure to the jackhammer, my response isn't as dramatic. Excuse me. To change up the example a bit, say for example that while the jackhammer is going off, and I'm writing my outline, my dog comes up to me and he starts clawing at me because he wants to go outside. And so I go put him in the other room because I'm trying to focus. And I come back to start writing again, but this time I start noticing the jackhammer again, and I'm having trouble focusing again. And my response isn't as great as the initial exposure to the jackhammer, but I still have to rehabituate to it. So, is habituation important? Yes. Why is it important? It's important because habituation serves a fundamental part of our lives, whether you're a banana slug or a human. It can aid you in mating, being able to recognize a mating call, or avoiding predators, or just from an efficiency standpoint, you can get more done quickly. Whereas if you don't have that ability to habituate, life is going to be very difficult for you, as is the case for some people. So that leads me to schizophrenia. So as it pertains to schizophrenia, it is a mental disorder that is characterized by hallucinations, delusions, and paranoia, and disordered thoughts. And there are a few types of paranoia. There are more than the two listed here. But there's paranoid, which is more characterized with delusions of what some call persecutory delusions, and that people are out to get you, and so hence the paranoia. And then there's non-paranoid, and that has non-paranoid is an umbrella term for a number of types of schizophrenia that aren't paranoid. just about the onset of schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is there is a genetic component to schizophrenia, but there's also environmental cues that are responsible for the onset, the actual fruition of the symptoms. So it's both. It's both a nature. It's a matter of both nature and nurture that's responsible for the onset of schizophrenia. So how does schizophrenia relate to habituation? Well, there are a number of studies that have shown that schizophrenic individuals have a decreased ability to habituate. And so that isn't just a coincidence, I don't think. That inability to habituate kind of explains some of the symptoms. So the sensory overload that would come with, not being able to habituate explains the disorganized behavior and the poor memory that are associated with schizophrenia. So one study set out to, explore this link between habituation or a lack thereof and schizophrenia. And so Geyer and Braff in their 1982 study administered. They took presumed normal patients, a control group, and schizophrenic patients, and they administered this acoustic noise through headphones, and they measured their eye blink response with a fancy apparatus. Then not only did they measure the frequency, but they also measured the intensity of the eye blink response to these acoustic noises, and they did this over 121 trials per participant. The results showed that, unsurprisingly, schizophrenic patients could not habituate nearly as well as their normal or presumed normal counterparts. Schizophrenic patients habituated by 49%, whereas normal patients experienced a 74% decrease in response. So they habituated by 74%, depending on how you want to phrase it. And notably, they did not find any significant difference between paranoid and non-paranoid patients, meaning that this inability to habituate is a very fundamental feature in schizophrenia. In another study, a more modern study using more fancy toys, Williams and his colleagues in 2013 used fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, to observe patients or participants, both presumed normal and schizophrenic, observe their brains while they were administered a kind of a medley of images ranging from faces and other neutral objects or images. So they were interested in observing the visual cortex and the hippocampus, and I'll say more about what's significant about those regions, but those were the regions of interest for them. So the results showed that the regions of interest showed a decreased ability to habituate in schizophrenic patients. So notably, the hippocampus showed that they were with the inability to habituate in the hippocampus explained one of the symptoms associated with schizophrenia, which is poor memory.